Good morning. Welcome to the Dave Fox Home Remodeling Show. We are here every Sunday morning at 8 o'clock, aren't we, Jamie?
Sure are.
Yep. So we appreciate everybody tuning in. I know a lot of you have listened to us for a long time, and we really appreciate that. For those of you just tuning in, or maybe you're not too familiar with us, just so that you know, you can always email us at info@davefox.com, or you can go to our website, davefox.com, see all about our company, see pictures of our employees, a lot of projects that we've done. And then there's a bunch of previously broadcast radio shows at davefoxradio.com. So 3 easy things to do. info@davefox.com for email. Of course, davefox.com for the website, or davefoxradio.com for videos and broadcasts. Did I do that right, Jamie?
Yep, you covered it all.
I did okay?
Yes. You can also find us on YouTube if you want to just see the videos. And then, of course, follow us on Instagram and Facebook.
Instagram and Facebook, and that's your department.
Yes, that's at Dave Fox Design Build.
Okay.
Is our kind of tag on all social media. So if you're looking for us on social media, follow along. We have there's a lot of good day-to-day stuff in there, especially on our Instagram stories and things that you can follow. We'll follow along some projects.
What do you do on Instagram anyways?
Instagram's great. If you're not on Instagram, it's a lot of pictures and a lot of visuals, which we have a few of.
I was on it once.
You was on it?
Yeah.
You saw it once? Mm-hmm. That's good. Good for you, Gary. No, but the thing I really like about Instagram is, hashtags and things like that. They seem silly unless you actually utilize them. But if there's something you're thinking about doing, Instagram is actually a great place to search for things. It's kind of a Google alternative that I think is a little bit more curated. And so you could search a hashtag or search a location. I use it actually when I'm traveling. I'll look up that location on Instagram.
Oh, really?
And that's how I find a lot of the restaurants and things, or coffee shops, or whatever I'm going to go visit, just based on what they look like, which is terrible. But but I do think there's something too when a business has a really identifiable and inviting Instagram account, and their feed is just really inspiring, and it's a place you want to go visit. It says something about their business and how seriously they take it. And so, as a consumer in my personal life, when I travel, I like to look at that. And that's typically how I find everything. It's my search engine for travel.
So there's a whole world out there I don't even know about.
Oh, yeah. You would love it. I bet there's a bunch of airplane stuff.
Oh, yeah?
You can search if there's a specific type of airplane that I don't know anything about airplanes.
Airplanes and guitars?
Oh, yeah. If there's a certain type, you could search that hashtag. Oh. And you would be amazed how much you'd find.
Oh, I'm
show
intrigued.
You later. You're going to love it.
All right, I want to see how to do that.
Okay. But yeah, anyway, follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Facebook too. But Instagram's really where you're going to get kind of a lot of the behind the scenes and the day-to-day. You're going to get updates on our latest projects getting uploaded to the website and all the fun we have going on every day.
Cool. Sounds great. I never knew that Instagram had so much stuff.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So, what are we talking about today?
So we're going to go over some of the tips and questions that we get from our listeners.
Oh,
our listeners email, info@davefox.com and send us questions. We mentioned that at the end of last week, so we got a few questions in from that. We're going to try and get to most of them today, and then also just some home maintenance tips with spring hopefully kind of trucking along the corner here.
Okay.
But yeah, we're just going to go over some of those questions.
All right. Sounds like a very practical show today.
It is. It is. So, question number 1.
Okay.
Are you ready for this?
I'm on the spot.
All right.
I hope I got the answer.
So this listener would like to know, how do I increase the water pressure in my shower? Got any ideas?
Move to a home that has higher water pressure than yours does. Actually, every home has varying water pressures depending on how close they are to a water storage tank or pump or whatever. Now in my home, I have a flow by Moen control. Do you have one?
I don't, but my parents do.
That's right. You remember telling me about your dad having it.
Yes.
Yeah.
He should not.
Okay. Which this device measures the water flowing in your home. And it's kind of a smart device in that it can detect normal water usage and abnormal. And when it detects abnormal usage, it gives you an alarm or an alert. And it'll actually, if you don't respond to that alert over a period of time, it'll actually shut your water off.
Right.
So this device is mounted right after the main water shutoff. So it's right there after the shutoff valve. And it also measures your water pressure. So I honestly didn't know what water pressure I had in my home. I knew I had good water pressure, but I didn't know how many pounds per square inch it was until I put this device on. So now, right on my phone, it's telling me I have 75 pounds per square inch, which is a high water pressure.
Yeah, it sounds
And
good.
that's just the nature of my neighborhood where my house is located, the water lines that are feeding to my house. All that goes together to give me whatever water pressure my house is getting. So that has a lot to do with how much water pressure you get at all of your faucets, your showers, your sink faucet, running the bathtub. So that's one part of the equation. Another part is the condition of your water lines and the size of your water lines. So a lot of times we'll run 3/4 inch pipe up to a shower, especially if it's going to have some spray nozzles, body showers, maybe 2 big large shower heads, anything like that where it's using more volume. We want to use a larger diameter pipe so it can handle the additional water flow. So if you're in a shower situation where maybe you've got 2 shower heads and you're running them both at the same time and the water pressure is low, well, maybe you only have a 1/2 inch line feeding those. So that's going to restrict some of the water flow. Sometimes shower heads can have these little strainers. So if you would unscrew the shower head from the nipple coming out of the wall, you may see these a little strainer.
Yeah, it looks like a little filter almost.
A little filter.
Yeah.
And sometimes those just get covered with calcium or just deposits that will gang up there and restrict the water flow. So you may want to take that filter out. Some faucets have water reduction, units in them, which you may want to take out.
Yeah.
So those are some of the things that you can look at, but it could be any one of those, really.
Yeah, that's actually, I did that on the faucets in my shower, is I took the little filter things out, and I actually, what I did was made the holes just a little bigger.
Okay, yeah.
Just a little bigger.
Sure.
I tried taking them out completely at first, and it hurt. It
Oh.
physically hurt. So I was like, okay, that's too much.
So you adjusted your filter to get the pressure you
Yes,
wanted.
I made it custom.
That's
I customized
pretty clever.
it. Yeah, I highly recommend customizing. the
Okay.
filter. All right, very good. So I have one other question with that, just because in my house, when I have the kind of faucet turned all the way on hot, and then if I turn it back a little, I feel like the pressure is harder if it's not all as hot as it goes. Is that true, or is that weird?
It could be because when it's turned clear to hot, then you've got one feed. Your hot feed is where all the water's coming through.
Okay.
If you mix the water, then it's getting fed from the hot and cold water line.
That makes total
So
sense.
that could give you a little more pressure then.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense then. All right, great. So next question, totally different topic here. We might need a little bit more time on this one, but what is induction cooking?
Induction cooking
Yeah.
is electronic and magnetic induction. So you do need magnetic pans for that to work. And I have an induction cooktop in my home.
Oh, do you? I didn't realize that. Okay.
Yeah. And they're great to cook with. I'll actually talk a lot about how we use that cooktop and what what pots and pans work and which ones don't. So we're up against break here. After the break, let's talk about that.
Okay.
Okay, Jamie, so we're talking about induction cooktops.
Yes.
And actually, if you're just tuning in, as you mentioned, Jamie, we're kind of answering some of the questions that we've gotten
Yeah.
over a period of time. I don't know how long that period of time is, but anyways, here we are answering questions.
Yeah.
So you asked what is induction cooking?
Yeah.
Now, most great chefs and cooks like gas cooking, right? Because
Yeah.
you are controlling exactly how much heat your dish is getting at any given time. And it's instantaneous.
Yes.
Well, induction cooking is very similar in that you've got instant heat at a variety of different levels, and it's done through electronic magnetic induction, and it has to have a magnetic pan in order for that to work. So
magnetic pan, you mean like you could actually stick a kitchen magnet to the
Yes,
pan?
yeah.
Interesting.
And that's a really good way to test to make
Okay.
sure your pan will work. So an all copper pan and all aluminum pan will not work.
Okay.
And there's a lot of the cookware today is made to work with induction cooking, and it usually will mention that. But you do have to be careful because the thickness and weight of your pan makes a difference too. So I've got some pans, and which means more expensive, right? The thicker and heavier they are, the more expensive ones. So if your pan costs a heck of a lot of money, it's going to work really good on an induction cooktop.
Okay.
If it's like, wow, this is a bargain, here's an induction pan, and it's only $60 or something.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? You may have a little
You
struggle
might not
with
love
that.
it.
And I've got one of those pans, okay? So when I cook eggs, I have like a little 6-inch pan, fry pan or whatever you call it.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to work for induction cooking, but it's a lightweight pan. Well, there's only one burner on my induction cooktop that'll work on, and it's the very small one. So if I put it on a burner that's the exact same size as the pan, it won't engage the induction system.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So the burner will it won't even come on. It'll kind of blink like we got a problem here. So it will work on the very tiny burner, but the pan's bigger than that burner. It's the only way I can get it to work. But a nice heavy induction pan will work on any of the burners, and you can hear it cycling. So it's a very faint sound. You can't hear it unless the kitchen's very quiet and you're really listening.
Yeah.
But it'll just cycle. So the lower heat setting you put it on, the slower that cycle is. So it's giving intermittent heat and cycling just to give you the right temperature that you want, but it's instant.
Yeah.
And the surface around it does not get hot because the surface itself doesn't get hot. Only the pan gets hot.
I mean, that's definitely the coolest part of induction cooking, I think. I mean, a lot of the demonstrations you see is where they're cooking something or frying bacon or something that takes really high heat, and they have a paper towel between the cooktop and the pan.
Yeah.
And the paper towel stays totally cool and unfazed.
Yeah.
And it's almost too hard to believe unless you're really there and can touch it yourself.
Yeah. That's probably slightly deceiving because when the pan gets hot, it's going to heat the glass surface below it.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not like you just pull a pan off and you can stick your hand right there where the pan was, because that area will be hot.
Will be hot. Okay.
Yeah. But it's only hot because the pan was hot.
Okay.
And the nice thing is, like, you can be frying eggs or something, and the second you turn the heat off, the pan can still be in the same spot, and you'll just hear instantly that there's no sizzling
heat.
sound anymore.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of our clients who put an induction cooktop, I was chatting with them at a photo shoot, and she said one of her favorite things to do is lay out paper towels when she's cooking something that kind of splatters a lot or with oil. And the cleanup is you just throw away the paper towels.
Yeah. Yeah,
I was
that
like,
definitely
that is
work.
genius. But I know a lot of clients too like to put them in a island, especially if they have children or people seating at their island as well, just because there's not quite as much heat coming off of it, or
True.
with the rest of the cooktop and
Yeah,
things
it's
like that.
much safer in terms of children and reaching for things.
Yeah. I always worry. We have a gas cooktop, and luckily it locks really easily. It's just a button. But I always worry about that because it's very much at toddler height, and they can easily crank up that gas. And it is scary. But yeah, I have a no one in the kitchen rule while I'm cooking because it scares me.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay. All right. So the next question. was can I move the thermostat to another spot in my house?
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah.
Okay, so a thermostat is measuring the air temperature wherever it's located.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, do you think it'd be a good idea to put a thermostat above a heat register?
No.
No, because it's got warm air coming out and it's going to turn everything off, right?
Yeah,
So
or in
your
a
house
sunroom.
might be 50 degrees, but the thermostat thinks your house is 70 because all the warm air is coming out right there.
Mm-hmm.
So just thermostats can be moved. They're usually located in an area where the ambient temperature, air temperature, is in a place that's not influenced by windows or by any heating elements, anything that would cause an abnormal temperature range. So really, you wouldn't want it by an exterior door, because if someone opens the door, then it's going to get a false temperature reading.
Sure.
But it just needs to be in a fairly protected area of the home that's not going to be influenced by any external air temperature things.
Yeah.
So that way it's reading kind of the ambient temperature of the house. And really, other than that, it could go anywhere.
So as far as moving it would go, what does that entail, though? Is it as simple as
there's
popping it on a wall?
maybe 3 or 4 wires that are going to that.
Okay. So would they need re-fed
Yes.
through a wall?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You would
Okay.
have to feed those wires. There may be wireless thermostats. I'm sure there are. I don't know of any, but
Yeah. I don't know. I know we have the Nest one,
Mhm.
which is kind of cool. But yeah, where ours is at, the sun hits it at a certain point in the day.
Okay.
And it always thinks it's really
Uh-huh.
hot in the house.
Yeah.
It's like, it's
That's a
freezing,
perfect-
turn on.
Yeah, perfect example. Yeah.
Yeah, we have to kind of fake it. So we'll set it to like 78 just so it turns the heat
Oh,
on.
really?
Yeah. Because it gets so cold at that point in the day, especially on a sunny winter day.
Okay.
It thinks it's really hot, and so we just crank it up so it'll fake the heat on for at least a little bit.
Yeah. So there'll just be some little small wires feeding that, and someday if you and Oscar want to take on a challenge and fish those wires and through a different wall, go for it.
No, that's another house rule. No wires.
oh.
When there's wires involved, we bring in
Oh, you
someone
can't
else.
get shocked from these. It's very low voltage.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll see.
Okay.
See. Don't tell them our ideas. All right. So, the next question we have is there anything that you can do about nail pops?
Nail pops. Okay. Do you know what causes a nail pop?
A nail popping out of the wood?
Well, it's a nail.
I don't know what actually causes it to pop out.
Popping out of the drywall.
Okay.
So, and that's caused typically by when a house is framed, it's open to weather, right? And let's say a house is built in the spring when it's raining like crazy.
Yeah.
So the framers are out building all this beautiful structure and it's raining on it and the wood's kind of soaking up that water. And as wood absorbs water, it expands. So maybe that 2x4 that measures 3.5 inches, maybe it measures 3 9/16 because it's absorbed a lot of water. And then the drywall goes on and you put these drywall nails or screws to hold the drywall on and pulls it right up tight against the wood and everything looks great until that 2x4 over time begins to shrink because now it's drying out.
Yeah.
So the very end of that nail or screw is the point where the nail doesn't move, but the wood between that point and the outside wall is shrinking. So what it does as it shrinks, it's pulling the wood and the drywall closer to the end of that screw or nail, which leaves a gap then. So it's pulling the drywall into the wood as it's shrinking, but that nail head stays where it's at. So that's what pushes out and causes that nail pop.
Okay.
We're going to take a break and I'll tell you what to do about it.
Okay.
Okay, so Jamie, we're talking about nail pops today.
Yes.
Great remodeling topic. If you want your nail pops remodeled, just call Dave Fox Remodeling and we will remodel. Oh, no? We don't do that. Okay, so we were talking about what causes a nail pop in
Yes.
drywall.
Yeah.
And it's just that nail, that head, screw head, pushing out as the drywall sucks in. As the wood dries out, it shrinks, pulls the drywall in, which pushes that nail head out. So the way to fix that is you're going to have to kind of chip away because there's going to be the spackling drywall mud around that nail head, and you're going to have to kind of take a screwdriver or a knife or something, kind of knock all that loose stuff away. And then if it's a nail, you want to just take maybe a nail set and a hammer and pop that nail in a little bit, because there is a gap between the nail head and the drywall now, because the drywall moved in because of that shrinkage.
Yeah.
So if it's a screw, you just crank it in a couple times, and then you're going to have to just respackle that area, which is really easy. With a putty knife, you can do that. Put a coat on. Don't try to put it all on or tackle the whole thing in one coat. You just put a coat on and scrape it off nice and tight. Let that dry. It'll shrink a little bit probably. Put another coat on. Let that dry. Take a little sanding block, and you're good to go.
Yeah. Okay. So is it more likely to happen again in that same spot then?
No, it should not happen again.
Okay.
Right, because that wood should be dry.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be shrinking anymore.
Is there a time of year that's best to do that, just with the temperatures and with heat or air conditioning on?
Not really, because your house, this typically happens, in the first couple years of construction.
Okay.
If something happens after that, it might be because of some movement or something else.
Okay. And with remodeling, where we might have reframed something in a controlled environment, is it still as likely to happen?
I would say not as likely, because now we're working in a covered home, so it's not exposed to outdoor elements like rain.
Okay.
So it's far less likely to happen.
So on an addition or a new build is more than likely where you might see that.
Yep.
Okay. Very good. All right. I know we have one in our 2-story great room.
Yeah.
And it's really high up there.
Yeah.
And we're both scared of heights, so we just kind of look at it and think, someday, someday. But yeah. All right. So the next question we got is, the pipes in our house bang when we turn on the water. It sounds like hammering. What causes this? And to get rid of the noise, do we need to call a plumber, or is there something else we can do to fix it?
Yeah, I think you may be calling your neighborly plumber.
Okay.
Because it's, water, that hammering noise can be from water pressure building up and not having a good escape route. And sometimes there are plumbing techniques that you can do to minimize hammering or eliminate it. And if you've got a consistent problem, one is if your pipes are, maybe it's in the basement area where they're exposed, and maybe they're hammering because they're not attached tight to the bottom of the joist or something. If there's a long length of pipe that's just kind of dangling there, then affixing that firmly to the framing may help some.
Okay.
But if it's just a typical water hammering issue at a faucet or something, you may have to have a plumber just do a little bit of reworking there.
Okay. Now, does that ever have anything to do with, needing a water softener or anything like that, or are those totally different things?
No, totally different.
Okay. All right. Very good. All right. What about when sometimes I'll notice like an HVAC vent kind of make a pop or a click or a noise? Is that kind of a similar problem, or just maybe needing cleaned?
Well, I wonder if that's more expansion and contraction.
Okay.
Because of the temperature change. Probably, if you're just hearing the ducting talk to you a little bit. Yeah.
Okay.
Probably expansion and contraction from temperature change.
Okay, great. All right. Then we have our next question here. How often do you advise to have ductwork cleaned? When I removed the cold air returns recently, the ducts seemed to be pretty clean. I change the filter on a regular basis, have no pets, and the house is about 36 years old. Are there any guidelines for this?
Well, if you have toddlers in the house, you probably have a bunch of toys down all your registers. So you may want to reach down under and get those out. But yeah, duct cleaning is, it's a number of years ago that became quite the rage to have ducts cleaned.
Yeah.
And there was this flurry of activity of duct cleaners and all that stuff, and how everyone was recommending you do that. But that kind of came and went. And I think most people, I can't think of any home that I've ever technically had a duct cleaning done.
Yeah.
changing furnace filters is important, very important.
Yeah.
It helps with not having to clean ducts, but that's probably the least important part. I mean, just your air conditioning coil can get dirty, and that can really greatly reduce the efficiency of your air conditioning. So that's why a lot of times people have a HVAC company come out annually and just kind of service their system. And part of that would be cleaning those coils. But maintaining good filters on your furnace is really key. And using good filters, changing them when you need to, alleviates a lot of problems. And there are some furnaces that will just physically shut down if it's not getting enough air pressure, if that filter got too dirty. And that usually always happens when it's 0 degrees out at midnight and your furnace is dead and you can't call anybody, and here you are struggling trying to figure out what on earth happened to your furnace.
Yeah.
It could be as simple as simply your filter got too dirty. So I always set up alarms on my Outlook calendar at the frequency. Some filters last 3 months, some filters last 6 months. It just depends on the style of filter, how they're built. But that's really critical.
Yeah, our Nest thermostat actually reminds us.
That's great.
It kind of alarms when it's time to do it. But it is funny how everything always happens in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
Like any smoke detector, if the battery's going to die, it waits till the middle of the night to die.
Chirp, chirp.
Yeah, it never fails. All right, so I got another question here. Should you worry about window condensation?
Well, maybe not. So window condensation is simply the temperature differential in how moist air can stay moist in warm temperatures, and the air can hold that moisture. But in cold temperatures, the air cannot hold the moisture. So the moisture has to go somewhere. And when your windows have very low insulating value, then they're going to be very cold. So obviously you're heating your home, the air is warm inside, it's holding more moisture. As that moist air hits that cold surface, it can't hold the water anymore, so the water condenses on your glass. And in extreme cases, it can just run down and to the bottom and ruin your wood sill. It could puddle up and freeze, in real cold temperatures. And we saw a lot of that years ago, especially in cases where there were single pane glass and maybe a storm window. So the energy efficiency was pretty low in those windows. Well, I think everybody nowadays pretty much has the insulated glass windows that do a pretty reasonable job, some better than others. But you're going to typically not have water condensing with a good window unless you're running a humidifier in your home in real cold temperatures to where you're just filling that warm air with so much moisture that then if it hits just a cool surface, not cold, but just cool, it has so much moisture in that air, it needs to let go of some of it. So you could have the best windows in the world, but have your humidifier up too high in real cold temperatures, and you will get that condensation.
Yeah.
That happens, and people really are puzzled over that, and they think their windows are failing, but they're just running that humidifier too much.
There you have it.
We're up against the break. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. Here at the Dave Fox Home Remodeling Show, and I'm Gary Demas. I'm president of Dave Fox Design Build Remodelers. Jamie is our marketing director. Jamie?
Yep.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me. Okay. All right, and thanks to all you listeners out there that are listening to Jamie and I just chat about remodeling stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And for sending in all these great questions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, I think I could probably talk about remodeling forever. There's always so many different topics to talk about.
I know. There's lots of different kind of areas of the home and nuances they create and things like that.
And that's the fun of remodeling, is different. Everything's different.
Yeah.
I can't stand doing the same thing over and over again. I like variety. So every house is different. Every family's different. Their needs are different. Got all kinds of different products to use. It just goes on and on.
Yeah.
It's just so much fun. I can't stand it.
I know it. All right. So the last I guess question was more of we got a bunch of questions about lighting in the home. And so I kind of just was going to bundle them into one. But as far as changing out lighting in your home and different light bulbs and kind of what they all mean, so things like LED light bulbs, we got some questions about just changing all the light bulbs in your house to LED and what kind of impact that makes, dimmer switches, things like that. So we were just getting a lot of questions about lighting in general, so I thought we could just kind of cover that topic. So we can just start with LED lighting and kind of what that means and how easy it is to make that transition.
Yeah. So the LED lighting, of course, uses a very low voltage and doesn't take much power to operate. But native LED lighting is going to be kind of a blue-white, and it's not the prettiest color to look at.
Okay.
So when the first LED lights came out, just like anything, any new technology, it's always going through continual development and improvement. And so we started with these LED bulbs that gave off this bluish color, and it's kind of unattractive. A lot of the car headlights you would see, you could just spot it a mile away.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
LED headlights. Look at those blue things. What on earth is going on there? And that's not a inviting or flattering color to us. We're used to looking at light that's filtered through the sun, and it's also, the incandescent bulbs give more of a yellowish cast, and we're used to that. A candle is going to be more of a yellow color. So we're used to artificial light being more yellow than blue.
Yeah.
Now, a daylight, which is like, Kelvin 6500 or somewhere around there.
I think that's right.
Is a very white light. And even a sunlight color in a room doesn't look as good as more of a 3000 Kelvin or 3500 bulb, which has a warmer look to it, a more of a yellow, warm glow.
Okay.
Just like in the room we're in here, we've got wood tones, we've got beige paint on the walls, and a bluish light in here would look terrible.
Yeah.
So the first LEDs, the technology wasn't perfected too well to give the different light colors. But now that's a thing of the past. But you do have to be careful buying bulbs because I'm guilty of this myself. I've got all these recessed can lights in my home that take a flood.
Yeah.
Like a 75 watt flood or 60 watt flood bulb.
Yeah.
Well, in LED terms, that's going to be maybe 7 or 8 watts. But there's the kind of a natural LED color, which is more blue or whiter.
Yeah.
And then there's the warmer color.
Right.
And you got to really watch what you're buying.
Yeah, you can't keep buying different ones.
You want them to say, like the color temperature is 3000 or 3500 is where you want to be in a typical home. So that's really the only thing you have to watch. You can replace any of your incandescent bulbs with an LED bulb as long as you watch that color temperature. And the pricing is another issue. As a new technology gets more popular, there's more of it produced, and there are competing companies that can make very inexpensive bulbs, for LED.
Yeah.
They can be a lot less than maybe you would pay at a lighting store that has better quality ones. And when you buy that cheaper one, it's going to say this will last 20 years. So you stick it in there, and 2 years later, it popped, and you're wondering, what on earth happened here? Well, that's 20 years at maybe 1 hour a day or something.
Yeah.
So there are LED bulbs that will last 50,000 hours or 70,000 hours, and those last a really long time.
Yeah.
But that's going to be an expensive bulb. That's not going to be an inexpensive one.
Okay.
So the ones that you pay, go to the big box store and buy those, they're not going to last 20 years, but they'll last longer than a normal incandescent bulb, and they will use a lot less electricity.
Yeah. So when we're doing remodeling projects, we're almost always doing LED lighting, I believe.
Yeah.
Is the actual fixture any different when we're putting in new fixtures that are for LED? Are they different than just, our bulbs that we're just changing out the light bulb for?
Yeah, that's a great question. And there's really two answers to that. One is we can still use the traditional can light fixture and put an LED bulb in there. a good quality one, so the homeowner will have a very high efficient, good working LED fixture.
Yeah.
But there are also like these, can lights are so popular in kitchens and other rooms.
Sure.
There are these wafer discs that are only a half-inch thick. So that is a fully sealed unit with LED bulbs in it. And it can go in a lot of places that a regular can light can't. For instance, in the kitchen, when we're laying out can lights, we have to make sure there's no joist above it because this light sticks up maybe 6 or 7 inches into that ceiling. And if there were a joist in the way, maybe we couldn't align those units exactly the way we wanted them. We had to move them one way or another because of the joists.
Yeah.
But these wafer lights can mount anywhere because they're only half-inch thick, the same thickness as the drywall.
Mm-hmm.
So you got a lot more freedom in placing them. You can put them any way you want them. You can align them perfectly to suit your plan. And they're very efficient. They last. Those are very high-quality bulbs, and they will last a very long time.
What's a very long time?
Well, I think most homeowners, unless you're going to be living in your house for 30 years, you probably would not have to worry about it.
Really?
Yeah.
And then, so if a wafer, for example, did go out, would you need to replace the whole wafer?
You would. You would
Okay.
replace the whole wafer. Mhm.
But you're looking at 30 years potentially.
Well, I said if you're in your house 30 years, you'd be changing it. So maybe, let's say 20 years.
20 years?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
a pretty long time.
That's a pretty decent amount of time.
Yeah.
And I can imagine in 20 years that technology is going to be quite different.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Wonder what's going to be here in lighting in 20 years. That's a
I
interesting
don't
thought.
know. Those wafers, though, they do have a different look in a good way. I mean, they're really seamless looking even once they're installed.
Yeah, they are.
I like those.
They're very, very well done.
Okay. So what about dimming?
Dimming? Okay,
Yeah.
so a high quality LED bulb can be dimmed. Lower quality ones are very clunky if you try to dim them. It's not a smooth transition in light intensity.
Okay.
But the higher quality bulbs can dim very well. Yeah.
Okay.
That was a problem a few years ago as this technology was being perfected, but they've got that down really well now. So the dimmer has to be a special dimmer for LED fixtures. But
And is a dimmer simply the switch? You just buy a new
Yes.
switch plate and a dimming bulb and you have a dimmer?
that's exactly
That's
right.
it. No wiring change or anything?
That's correct.
Oh,
Mhm.
that's easy.
Yeah, so you can buy a decent dimming control for $25 to $35.
Yeah. Now, what about electricity use? Is it the same use if it's dim or at full?
No,
light?
actually, a dimmer reduces electricity use and also greatly enhances the life of a bulb. Even an incandescent bulb put on a dimmer will last a lot longer than if it doesn't have a dimmer.
Well, I think I have a weekend project ahead of me.
Okay, sounds good. All right, Jamie. Well, it's been great chatting with you this morning, and it's been great having everybody listen in. You can go to davefoxradio.com, and there you can see the video of this show. If you have any interest in doing that, there you go. Or you can download previously broadcast shows, and we appreciate you being here. We'll be back next Sunday morning at 8.